it's a different road for everybody, right, Cory? And I think that is actually one of the beautiful things about this industry that we're in. There are so many different niches and so many different roads that you can go down, but there's always turnoffs to get going into different directions that can bring you to something that might be a better company, might be a better fit, might be a better niche in this business, where you can still leverage your knowledge and your experience at where you were at.
Welcome to Just a Girl in Construction. This is the podcast for hardworking construction workers who want to drop the tool belt and build the skills to move into a management position. If you're an on-site construction worker seeking a management position, then this podcast is for you. My guest today is Joe Prim. He's a skilled, finished millworker professional. And after putting his hands to work, Joe has learned firsthand the need for leadership at all levels within the construction industry. Today, we will be discussing some of those hard topics about bridging communication and relationships between the site and office management, and the need for different styles of leadership to reach all of the diverse personalities that we work with in the construction industry. So be sure to like and subscribe to get the latest episodes on construction knowledge and leadership tips to elevate your career in construction management. Hey, Joe, thank you so much for being here today. I know that we caught you on the road, but that you're flexible. And so I appreciate the opportunity to have a really great discussion with you today.
Yeah, thanks, Cory. I apologize. This was not my intent, but I appreciate you guys dealing with me being stuck on the road. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Well, I think it's kind of the way we are in construction, right? We just really never, ever know where we're going to be, and we have to make the best of it. So as we're jumping in, let's just hear a little bit about you and what you do with the construction industry.
I started out in the late 90s, as a carpenter apprentice, and did my apprenticeship here in the Chicago area, and went through my apprenticeship, did a lot of different carpenter jobs. Really did started out building houses through the winter, which was not a lot of fun, and went from there to doing drywall and doing framing and grid ceiling systems. And then from there got into millwork, which was what I really wanted to do. From the moment I decided I wanted to become a carpenter, and I actually followed kind of in my grandfather's footsteps and my father's footsteps, and becoming this third generation carpenter, I really wanted to get into millwork. And it took me a good 10 plus years in this industry, in this business, to get to a point where I had a door that squeaked open just enough for me to put my foot in there and work my way in. And I love it. So from that point, I'll be honest with you, Cory, I got a little bit bored. I got bored. I kind of had got to a point in my career where I had reached where I wanted to go. That was the pinnacle for me. I was running work for big millwork, old school, long time, long running, well-known company in the Chicago area. And I kind of felt like I hit my peak, and that was as far as I could go. And that's what the industry had for me. And I had reached the end of the road, kind of. And so as I started to get a little bit bored and sidetracked, we decided to move down to Texas. So a lot of people that follow me on Instagram, or not on Instagram, but on LinkedIn, know me from my time in Texas, because really that's when I began posting and sharing a lot more on LinkedIn, is during my time down there in Texas. And I like to say, in Texas, I spent my time doing kind of everything else in this industry that I thought I wanted to try out, from being, an assistant PM to being a general superintendent, and going from millwork project to millwork project, keeping them running, from all the way from Dallas down to San Antonio, most of my time in Austin, and then working for a general contractor as a superintendent. And at the end of the day, I'm back here in Chicago area with my tools back on and absolutely loving every day of what I'm doing. I tried those things and I realized how much I enjoy being in the field, the camaraderie, the actual hands-on experience of watching things be built, the interaction between the different trades, the interactions, the planning ahead, the coordinating that happens on site, kind of in the dirt, the real construction. And I'm happy to be back where I am. I'm really, really thrilled to kind of feel like I came full circle, like I'm almost back exactly where I was at, but I'm a different person back where I am now than definitely where I was when I had just kind of got to that spot where I was bored. So that's just a little bit about me, Cory.
A little bit. So I want to break it down because that is a lifetime of work that you have in place, and it's so exciting. And it really brings to one point that I want to focus on our conversation today, because it's a point that I have had with a number of construction company owners who I've helped. And that is this understanding or belief that they need to move from working in their company to on their company. And many of them say, but I love what I'm doing. I love working as the person in the company. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that and what that journey was for you, going full circle and then finding yourself back in this place of familiarity that was generationally given to you through your parents or your grandparents, and really identifying your skills as a carpenter. But before we go there, I want to ask, because in California, we don't know what it's like to work when it's cold. So how is it working in Chicago and trying to do that? I mean, you always hear, we get a show up time of 4 hours, but I mean, there are regions in our United States where people have to work regardless of the weather. So tell us how somebody can make that happen.
I think it's just a mindset thing. It is interesting because what some people believe is cold is different than people in other regions believe is cold. So it's interesting. Like, it was funny to me when I first moved down to Texas to see people putting on their Carhartts and their winter hats and their gloves when the temperature dropped below 40. But in relation to what they're used to there, but I think it comes down to just a mindset thing. And I think a lot of credit needs to go out to those people that do wake up early every morning, put on their boots, lace them up, and know that they are going to face a day that they don't know what's going to bring. That's going to be cold. And I'll tell you what, Cory, there is no cold like being inside of a building that's being built. That concrete absorbs the cold, all the metal studs hold that cold in. So there'll be days where even this come springtime where it starts to warm up outside, it's starting to look nice out, and you're looking out the window and the guys working outside are in their t-shirts and you're inside that cold tundra of that building, and it takes a long time to warm back up again. But I'm doing millwork now, so thankfully I don't have to deal with that quite as much as I used to or have in the past. But it is definitely something where, a lot of these people that are doing this on a day-to-day basis deserve a lot of respect for the work that they're putting in.
It really does take all kinds and everyone to be able to make these jobs work the way that they do. And so let's talk a little bit about your profession as a mill worker. A lot of people do know what it is, but might not understand why it takes so long for you to be able to establish the skill sets associated with the workmanship that goes into a finished product for millwork. So explain to the community just a little bit about how that road was taken and your professionalism that took you to that next elevation level of being a finished millworker.
It's a different road for everybody, right, Cory? And I think that is actually one of one of the beautiful things about this industry that we're in. There are so many different niches and so many different roads that you can go down, but there's always turnoffs to get going into different directions that can bring you to something that might be a better company, might be a better fit, might be a better niche in this business, where you can still leverage your knowledge and your experience at where you were at and use that and maybe even open up some eyes or show a little bit different perspective on things from your gained vantage point. But for me, I probably just took the really long, difficult route to get where I was going. It used to be back in the day, most millwork companies didn't hire anybody that was under 40 years old. That was kind of their unwritten rule that was acknowledged, was that they wanted people like you're saying that were experienced in the business, understood how to communicate, understood how to carry themselves, had allowed the business itself to kind of wean out a lot of the people that wouldn't fit into their niche. That's laxed a lot. We have a lot more apprentices in millwork right now. But for me, it was a desire to I think feed on being a perfectionist. I love working to zero. I love making sure that things are laid out correctly, that the time is spent preparing versus just trying to attack and get after things. So another thing that I really enjoy about being on the millwork end is you do have an opportunity to work with everybody. Whether you're working with electricians and their light placements within like maybe a panel wall that you're doing, or you're working in a hospital on headboards where you're working with all the mechanical guys of where all their oxygen and all their different outlets are in the hospital headboards, to working with the plumbers for, vanities that you're installing in bathrooms, or relocating plumbing for different pantry or kitchen elevations. So you have an opportunity to kind of work with everybody, but at the same time, you're the last guy in. You get to kind of put that final stamp on what that's going to look like. It's you get to have the final say on how things are portrayed, and bringing the designers and the architects' blueprint or their vision to life. And I think that's a really neat thing to do. And another thing I enjoy about it, I would say, Cory, is that it's always different and always changing. Where a lot of the trades, you end up doing very similar things and monotonous things over and over and over again. Where doing millwork, I have an opportunity to work with metals and with stone and with wood, and take on different finished elevations that, like I said, were dreamt up by somebody, either a wild idea or something interesting or something new that they wanted to try, a new product or a new lighting, or however they're trying to, whatever it is that they're envisioning, to be able to bring that to life and to make that real is my favorite part of it.
So what you're telling me, Joe, is that you really are an artist.
Yes. Well, we'll leave that to everybody else's discretion. But yes, I think that's a part of the beauty of it, is to be able to bring some of that personality into it, and that way of how you're going to accomplish that and how you're going to make that vision a reality.
Yeah, and that's what I really love about it, is that you can have this innovation and creativity, but at the same time, it has an element that most artists would not have, and that is that perfection mechanism that has the cleanness of lines for coordination or collaboration into the next part of the construction phase, where, as an artist, we might just leave a loose, wispy end or curve on the end of our paintbrush. But, one of the things that you said that I want to go back to is this importance of project planning before implementation, because it really does take the risk out of things, and it takes the opportunity of being able to organize and structure. And when we talk about men and women in construction, and sometimes people confuse masculine and feminine energy as being gender specific, but really understanding that in the masculine energy, whether you're a woman or a man, that we have this assumption that productivity means production and means action. And so we want to jump in and get stuff done. But doing that without planning can really end up dangerous on construction projects.
I agree 100%, Cory. I think that for me, what I have learned and what I see in this industry is a lot of focus on too many secondary and tertiary items where the focus really should be on time. And when you start focusing completely on time, because that's the only thing that we can't get back, it's the most valuable asset that we're using on any project is our time. When you start to look at things that way, it shows very, very quickly how important planning is, but not only planning, but your efficiency. So the smarter we can work, the less mistakes we make, the less material we use, all of those things start to become huge factors when you start to focus more on time than so many of the other things that we've become focused on.
And a really important point for those entrepreneurs or those individuals looking at starting their own company up, of recognizing that particular aspect and being able to then work their profit backwards from understanding how valuable their time is. But now I want to take you back to Texas, because you know that I'm a Texas A&M girl, and I saw that you were at the rodeo, so it just brought back more memories of my love for animals and just the people in Texas. It was absolutely an incredible, enjoyable experience. But I love that you just decided, I'm going to try what I haven't tried. I'm in a season in my life now where I can play discovery and experience some things. And elevation means that I'm going to move up into management and be a superintendent or supervisor. And I'm going to be having and guiding people in the work and what they're going to be doing. But then you came back to your hands-on millwork. So explain to me what you learned in those months while you were in Texas, learning about yourself and learning about the management side of things. I know a lot of times when I was working out on the job site, we would see the people from the office come out and we would literally roll our eyes like, oh God, here they come, what are they going to pick out, to be important about today, So we're trying to really establish a bridge that brings the communication closer between those out on the job site and those that are working in the office. So in talking to us about your experiences, tell us a little bit also about how you might see being able to build those bridges that currently have separated the site from the office.
I think it's quite an interesting phenomenon, Cory, because I remember even back being an apprentice and just not being able to really get my mind around that disconnect, and always thinking, even at that time early on in this business, there's got to be a way to bridge that gap. Whether I'm hearing negative things from the field thrown towards the office or from the office thrown towards the field, it didn't ever really sit well with me. So it was always kind of this back goal of, if I get to a point where I can start to make a change or see a change or work for some sort of change or some sort of explanation of what's going on here, that's something that I'm interested in doing. And what I saw in my experience of switching sides and switching into that other role is there is a need
for those. Be honest, let it flow.
There's a need for those in the office to give the people in the field their fair due, to show them the respect they deserve, and to listen to what they have to say. One of my favorite things to do when I was working as a general superintendent and going job to job and talking to my foreman and getting into their head of what's going on in the job, where their problems were and stuff, is listening to what they had to say had a very profound effect on my relationship with them. When they told me something was going wrong, or when things were going sideways, or they thought a new tool would help them be more productive, never was what they were trying to tell me personal or a negative on me. And coming from that side, I understood what they were trying to say and what they were trying to communicate. And maybe that's where some of the hangups are, is the communication between the two is just a little bit different. But I understood what they were trying to do, and I understood that their intent was to better the job, to better the project, to better the efficiency, to better production, to put themselves and the company in a better space. So whenever I could, I would give them what they asked for. I would give them what they needed. I would try to make sure that they understood that I understood what they were trying to accomplish.
Well, because I want you to finish that thought, but while you're finishing expressing it, I want people to also understand that this also works for the complexity of construction, which has over 5 generations of individuals working together out in the field and in the office. And that often that younger generation that has a lot of textbook knowledge that's coming into construction feels as though they're not heard, and feels as though people aren't listening to what they have to offer. And a lot of times, those of us that are a little more seasoned don't want to necessarily listen to what the new voice has to say. We want to be able to do things the way we know that it's worked in the past. And so this opportunity of whether you're a younger generation, a seasoned individual, or a woman or a man, or site or office, listening, active listening, and communication is going to open up the innovation and the bridge building necessary for us to be able to see it from the other side and have an appreciation for what everyone else is responsible for and doing to make this project successful.
I liken it to, in professional football, everybody on the team and on every single team, whether you're the trainer or whether you're the starting quarterback or whether you're one of the many coaches, everybody at the beginning of the season and throughout the season has one goal in mind: to win the Super Bowl. That's it. Now, that's the top goal. And it's the same in construction. Our goal on every single project should be to finish every project as safely and as quickly as possible. And if we can break it down and look at it that simply, then we're all on the same team. We should all be on the same page. So much of what the conflict that goes on construction sites is all based on ego. It's so much wasted time and energy and effort goes into these pissing matches about somebody's title or somebody's experience or the company that they work for, versus putting our focus on how are we going to get this done? What's the fastest, safest way to accomplish our goal? And I think that we've become an industry where so many people are trying to jockey for some sort of position and to be some sort of something or another, or move up or gain some kind of acknowledgement from somebody else, when I think if we would just put our focus back where it belongs, on finishing the project as safely and as quickly as possible, I think it would put us back in a spot where we were more quicker to listen, or quicker to accept other people's ideas, or quicker to correct issues that have been going on for too long.
100% agree. And it is one of the foundational aspects of construction management online, is that we use behavior comprehension and soft skill development in the creation of our coursework. And one of the things that I've always preached about it is that if we focus on the common goal of successful completion of the project, and what we recognize in the master plan of designing our life, designing our career, is that when you focus on things, that's where your energy is going to go, and that's where everyone else's focus is going to be. But when you see people focusing on the negative or focusing on the problems, then that's typically what is going to be expressed the loudest in the moment. And this is from our personal lives into our careers. So if we can get everyone to focus on what we do all believe in and drop to the side things that we might have controversy on or things that we have conflict on, we can come back and have respectful discussions about those types of things. But if we are able to remain the focus on forward momentum and completion, I 100% agree with you that that's where our success as a team is really going to evolve.
And that becomes a real frustration. It becomes a source of burnout. It becomes a source of people, makes it difficult to retain people. It makes it difficult to recruit people into this industry, and to get the right people into the right places, just because there is so much conflict and so much frustration over things that at the end of the day, at the end of that project, really hold no weight whatsoever.
So what are one of your favorite tools to be able to help a team focus on the success of the project and get them distracted from some of those little tiny things that the ego is pushing out there?
I think probably the best for that is to really delegate and make sure that people understand clearly what their scope of work is, or what their role is. Give them something that they can own. Give them something that they can hold on to, whether that be an elevation or a room that they're working on, or whether that be certain RFIs, whatever it might be. Give them a sense of something that they own and can take control over. That way, they can focus their energy onto their thing. They can own that. They can receive criticism or praise off of the way that they do on what's given to them. But I think that helps draw the focus away from so many of the other distractions or so much of what other people are doing, because it takes away some of the competitiveness of overlapping. People don't know what they're in charge of. People don't know where that line of segregation ends or begins, as far as what they're supposed to take care of. And without having defined roles, it also lends a lot more finger pointing. And a lot of that finger pointing leads to just where we were talking about, those toxic relationships and the toxic frustration and egos and everything, because people didn't even know really what they were supposed to be focused on or the direction that they're supposed to be going in.
Well, I 100% agree with you that there needs to be clarity, and people need to know exactly what it is that they're responsible for. But I'm going to push back on you just a little bit and ask, because if I give someone total ownership of a task and they're doing it wrong, or they're not going in the right direction that collaborates with other pathways, then what am I giving that person power to be able to continue the conflict because they're wanting to push through their own way? I think one of the other ways that I've looked at it is educating everyone on why and the responsibilities of what everyone else on the team is doing, and what you can do to help that person's job easier in contribution to the team effort moving forward. But what do you do with that person who you give that roles and responsibilities to, and they take it maybe just a touch too serious?
And I'm not going to disagree with you, Cory, whatsoever on that. But I think that there still is a hierarchy there of people. And the way I've always looked at it is, and it's different in the office, but in the field, for example, you have your regular run-of-the-mill journeyman, electrician, carpenter, plumber, whatever it might be, right? And they're at this level, and their focus is only on the elevation that they're working on, maybe the what's coming up the next day, but their focus is very, very narrow. And then you have maybe a lead guy, and maybe he's in charge of a whole floor. Maybe he's in charge of, half a dozen bathrooms or half a dozen this or that, right? So his level, he's just up a little bit higher. He's got a little bit bigger viewpoint of what's going on. Now he's keeping materials for these 6 guys and he's in charge of that. And then you have maybe the foreman and he might be in charge of 25 to 50 guys on a project, and he's at a higher level. He can't get back down there necessarily into the weeds on what's going on that small elevation, because he really needs to keep his focus up here. If he loses focus up here of everything that's going on, we have bigger problems. And then you have your general superintendent and maybe the project managers above that, because he's in charge of several jobs that are going on. So I think that no matter where you're at, there should be some sort of hierarchy, and they should be still having a viewpoint of what's going on. But I think that the more we can kind of give people something that they own, or however you want to word it, but own or be in charge of, helps give them something that they can feel good about if they do it right. And it also gives supervisors something that they can point out of corrections that can be made or directions that can be changed. And I don't necessarily think that it has to be, if you own it, you can do whatever you want with it, however you want with it.
Yeah. So what I liken it to is what's called order of precedence, and recognizing that, sometimes we have to do things that we don't like. But the thing is to try to not do that thing that you don't like for a long time. Work yourself into a position that is creating opportunities for you in areas where you excel, or that are things that are more natural for your skill sets that you have developed. And so being able to just not promote somebody from college because they have a college degree straight into a construction management seat, but allowing them to be able to work through those different layers or rungs of the ladder to be able to create opportunity for themselves by building experience, by being a part of it, and then having the empathy and understanding of what it takes for a guy to be in a trench all day long when it's super hot, and knowing how heavy steel is, and knowing why all iron workers have, collarbone points that are all sticking out. All of these things that we know about the construction industry that allow us to be able to learn that knowledge through the order of precedence and being able to earn your way. But I think that's what happened with you, is that you went through that order of precedence all the way to the top. And then you were like, I'm not happy up here. Like, I want to go back down to this certain level and be able to go back to that hands-on part. And I can't tell you how much I admire that, in the sense of it really shows self-awareness and what is really important to you, and how you really know how to be able to read your own skill sets and your own place of being. Because there's been times as a construction manager where I'm like, oh, I would so love to just go out, work, 6 a.m. till 2:30 in the afternoon and forget about all of it. But I've found that in construction management, it's usually a 24/7, because somebody on Sunday is calling about a broken pipe somewhere. So part of that is leadership and mentorship that happens in our companies. And I know that you have a focus of offering leadership to people that are in the trades. And so can you talk to us a little bit about what you have going on there?
I think that a lot of people are put in positions of leadership in this industry, especially in the field, mostly in the field, that have very little practical experience or very little training to fulfill that position and make it something that they can call their own, and something that they can enjoy doing rather than just being frustrated with it. And I've often said, and I've played around in a lot of different positions, like we said, but I truly believe that field leader, that foreman, is probably the most difficult role on a project. And I say that because you are surrounded by 3, at times, immovable forces, because you are kind of stuck in the middle by yourself with dealing with the GC, dealing with your office, and dealing with your crew. And they usually have very, very different ways of doing things or very different priorities. And it makes it very tough because you're kind of stuck in the middle there. And if you don't have the leadership skills to be able to deal with your crew, keep them motivated, keep them moving in the right direction, keep them being effective and productive, because you don't have the planning or scheduling skills in order to keep the materials and tools and things that they need in order to stay productive. So I think that a lot of those men and women that are put in those positions end up in those positions either because they were too slow taking that step back when somebody in the office asked whoever wanted to run the job to step forward, and they just were a little slow to step back, or they're just people that like to be bossy and like to run things, and it's a real ego trip for them, which is in the long run is not good for anybody.
Dangerous,
Or they just happen to be the person that shows up every day and is a hard worker and very skilled at what they do, and they get put into this role. And I think at the end of the day, it's an unfair position to put them into, because we've become, and I have out on LinkedIn later this week, so whoever listening to this can go back and check it out, but we've become an industry very dependent on education of the people in the office and in the trailer.
I don't see anything wrong with that, Mr. Prim.
I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to argue that whatsoever.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time because I'm just giving you a hard time because I have some people on LinkedIn that like to put their boxing gloves on with me and talk about how unimportant certifications and degrees are. And there's a part of me that agrees 100%, but I also know that there are individuals out there who will never be successful without structure and guidance, and that's what education offers. And so I just love for people to talk about the different options, but to still be very clear about understanding who you are before you make that decision.
I'm not going to fight you on that, Cory. I'm not going to fight you. My boxing gloves are put away. But what I was going to say is, so we've put a tremendous focus on education of those in the office and in the trailer, but yet we're putting people in places of roles of a foreman or field leadership with little to no training. And I don't think that that's fair, but I also look at it and I see an industry that's putting an awful lot of money and attention into technology, big money into technology, that's giving them very, very small percentages of ROI, very small at this point. At one point, maybe early on, those technologies, we could actually see them moving some numbers in the right direction. But at this point, we're kind of grasping at straws. But the reality is, I think that the field leadership, especially, is the low-hanging fruit. I think that's where the smart companies will begin to put their money into and invest into the training of those people that are in the field so that they can do a better job leading crews and understand what it means to lead, understand how to communicate. We communicate in a lot of different ways in this industry now, from text messages to within apps like Procore or Bluebeam. We communicate via email. We're leaving voice messages, all of those things. And I believe that simple training of having company SOPs on how we manage these things can go a long way. A lot of these people, again, it's very simple things of planning and scheduling. How far in advance are you planning ahead? When are material deliveries coming in? What's coming on those deliveries? Do we have enough screws? Do we have enough shims? Do we have enough copper? Do we have those things that we need in order to keep everybody progressing in the right direction? And another thing is, the more we have more and more paperwork going on the jobs, I think it's a two-edged sword, right? Especially for subcontractors, because a lot of that is just a time suck. It goes nowhere for them. But I also believe that a lot of those things, those daily reports, those photos, all of those JHAs, those can be leveraged by the subcontractor to their benefit. and to that foreman and to his crew themselves as a benefit if it's looked at and taught that way. And the other is how to use tech. We have a lot of technology that I'll always argue against, or I'll battle you maybe on the technology aspect, Cory. But a lot of the technology has added nothing beneficial or very little beneficial to the day-to-day work of those in the field. But I do and have found different tech that can be used. And I think that those little things that if taught or put in the right hands or used at the right time can benefit people, then we need to share that stuff and help these people out.
Well, I think it comes back to that thing that you were talking about earlier called mindset, right? And that is understanding that this technology is a tool to support you, not replace what it is that you are providing to the project. And I just finished my first cohort of coursework where I taught them all how to use ChatGPT in construction functions so that superintendents don't have to worry about their spelling or their grammar or the organization of their ideas. And it's something that they don't have to use all the time or for everything, but it's something that gives them a structure to work from. And it can help somebody who has had trouble in school writing essays or doing, letter formatting or what have you, give them the confidence to be able to produce professional looking material that makes them feel better about what it is that they're providing their company. But I want to go back to just talking a little bit about what we were saying as far as the complex, different diversity of individuals that are on our job sites and being able to have these communication tools with everyone. I've had some companies talk to me about they're using 5 or 6 different softwares. I mean, literally, I'm just like, why don't you just take a rope and go hang, because it is going to be so incredibly difficult managing all of that software. I mean, you want to be able to have something that works with your company and is able to really cover as many bases as possible. And we know how expensive the original investment is for any kind of software. So once you invest in it, you're usually tied to it forever. And so that also starts driving decisions. But this training of the individual, I often go back to company owners that I work with and ask them, how did you train that person before you ask them to produce that position? Because they'll be like, oh, Jack doesn't know what he's doing, and it's so frustrating working with him. I'll just have him go wash the truck for an hour because he's not doing what I want. Well, what do you want him to do? Well, what does a field engineer do? That's what I want him to do. And I'm like, you know what? It starts with you. That if we don't start taking accountability for what we're producing and requiring ourselves to be able to provide the right guidance to individuals that we put into different areas of leadership on our teams, then we can't look at them as being failures. We can't look at them as being the reason why it's not working. And so to your point, it's just so incredibly important that before someone is given a promotion, which I think any of us that are in construction, I mean, again, I was 24 years old running a $250 million prison project because my senior project manager got a brain hemorrhage at the end of it. I had no business doing any of that. And I learned a lot through fire hose in that particular situation. But at the time, I didn't feel like I was learning anything because I was just trying to get done what needed to get done to close the project out. And I think that sometimes in construction, that's how we all get promoted, is there's a problem, somebody needs to be the patch, and so we get put in there. And who is it that gets put in there can end up driving the success or failure of the rest of your project. It sets the tone. And so being more selective about who we're putting in those positions and how we're educating those people is really important. But it also creates credibility for the title. So those individuals who we're doing succession planning for with our companies, and we're really building them to be in that position, that we need to understand that there comes a pride with being in that position. There comes a reward for being in that position. And so it's something that's earned and not just something that's given to the next available person.
I couldn't agree with you more there, Cory. It's an interesting industry because the reality is there are so few standards set that are abided by the industry, company to company, sure, but industry wide, it's very, very open industry, which has its benefits because, like I was saying earlier, you have the opportunities to follow your dreams, right? Or follow your plan or change your mind of what direction or what company or what niche you want to get yourself into. So there are benefits to it, but at the same time, it's an industry that you drive and you are in control of where you're going to go. You are only going to go as far as the risks that you're willing to take. You're only going to go as far as you are willing to kind of push yourself or apply yourself. Otherwise, this industry has no problem just letting you hang back here and
Well,
and
we don't want to
either
train our
two.
competition.
Right. Well, people are so afraid of training the competition, but we drive where we're going with this industry. Look what you're doing right now. If somebody had asked you 10 or 15 or 20 years ago if this is where you saw yourself, you maybe you would have thought this was perfect, or maybe it's something you would not have been interested in. But that's really the beauty of this whole industry, is the freedom that we have to really write our own story and go where we want to go.
Yeah, no, I love that. We're responsible for our own success, and that's why we have to take accountability for all of our choices, and that when we are able to capture the evidence and everything out there to have more information of making the right choices, and we make those decisions to move forward, that's really where we're going to see our success. Well, I can't tell you how much I enjoy the opportunity to be able to speak with you, Joe. It's not often that I get to talk to the guys in the site, and you're such an incredibly valuable part of what the construction industry is. And, I wish more people could hear the voices of individuals who are on the job site, but we need to get work done. So we know you guys have your heads down and you're doing everything to keep the project successful. But can you tell us about any websites or links that people can use to follow you in order to learn more about what you're doing?
At this time right now, Cory, really, you can find me on LinkedIn. I try to write a post at least a couple of times a week just to keep people on their toes and get some of these crazy ideas out of my mind and onto this virtual paper so that I can stop dwelling on them and thinking on them. But I do enjoy reading the comments and kind of getting involved in what people are thinking and sharing kind of my viewpoint from my experience, which is, again, because we all travel such a varied route in this industry, everybody has a different perspective and everybody looks at things a little bit differently and is very unique to the position or the role that they're filling at that moment. So I like to share my opinions and my thoughts on LinkedIn. So if you give me a follow there, that would be great. And jump in the conversation. I think that's how we can leverage LinkedIn and some of these social media to our advantage, is by commenting and getting involved in a larger conversation.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to be able to say that Joe answers everything personally. And so it makes it really special to be able to hear from you and your perspective. And that, again, we all do have those life experiences, and God has created the uniqueness fingerprint on all of us to be able to design or custom design our own career paths. So I thank you so much for being here to share yours, and I am looking forward to seeing your posts on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Cory. Thanks again for the invite and the opportunity to share my experience and share what I got going on. Appreciate this.
Very good.